Hi everyone, so we're back with part 2. There was just so much to unpack. So we just want to go straight in. So you mentioned precipitant labour. So for those that don't really understand it, can you just let us know what that's all about?
It's when you're going basically from your first stage into your second stage of labour, and often it's just when it's just really quick where your cervix is suddenly opened and your baby is ready to deliver. And often you have maybe a few contractions, few really strong contractions, or it could be that your waters go and suddenly your baby's arriving. So it is really quick, and often you don't get much warning before the birth of your baby.
So is that, so would you say my labour, so I told you first stage 40 minutes, second stage you said 8 minutes.
Yes,
that is. So what, is that just anyone can have, like, what triggers that, or just some people just have precipitant labours?
Yeah.
Okay, and is it those people that you say they should be considering?
And that's what I would recommend to those ladies, yeah, definitely. Providing there's no other medical or other obstetric risk factors involved, then we would certainly advise that.
Or is it just...
Often women say, oh yeah, my mum had that, my sister had that, so it can be throughout families. Yeah, and certain cultures as well. Sometimes as soon as that baby, shoots down, hits the pelvic floor, and they're out. They're just just really quick. I always think, I would love to have had one of those births. I don't know if they're any easier as such, though. It can sometimes be a bit more intense, but often we would recommend, to those ladies.
So what are the risk factors that would definitely exclude you from taking a home birth?
So various medical conditions. Some of them, could be negotiated with your obstetrician as to whether you're being at home, but and also various obstetric factors. So if you've had previous cesarean sections, or
so if you had a previous C-section, you can't.
It's not that you can't. It's just that they would. It's just something to consider. When you're having that discussion with the team.
Have you had any woman yourself that you has laboured that has had a C-section before at home?
Yeah, so I had a lady once that had a breech presentation for her first baby and adopted to have a cesarean section, but with her second baby, the baby was head down, was in the cephalic position, and she really wanted to have she would have wanted a home birth with her first, but because of breech, she adopted to have a cesarean section. But second time round, there was no the reason for her to have a cesarean, and so she wanted to have a home birth, and she did. Yeah, she had a lovely normal home birth.
So we're not.
Yes. So no, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
And so Charlie, explain to us the differences between your 3 home births, having been there 3 times. What were the major differences between them?
Well, speed, actually. I think, with the first one, it was a typical first labour. So, I started labouring on a Monday afternoon when I was watching Strictly Come Dancing in Takes 2 on my birthing ball, and doing, rotating that way. And I was like, oh dear, I wonder if that's labour. And then, it became more regular and more consistent. I was like, yeah, okay, it probably is. But then he wasn't born until Wednesday morning. But the feeling that I had all the way through that was that it was really intense, but I still always felt like I had more left to give. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't ever feel like my tank was empty, that I couldn't cope. And I'd always thought that that's how I would feel, that I would be sort of at the end, at my wit's end almost, at the end of my resources. So it was lovely, really. And I had... he had an asynclitic head, so his head was not directly down onto the cervix, slightly tilted. So I had a cervical lip, which means that my cervix didn't dilate completely uniformly. So one part hadn't dilated completely. But I had an amazing midwife who's very, very experienced in home births. Did she tell you this
at the time of birthing?
Yeah.
But you just felt calm?
I just trusted her.
Okay.
I'm not in a silly, naive, it'll all be okay kind of way. She's sensible and serious and straight down the line, and she doesn't take any chances. She's not a, raving hippie. She's she's a really sensible professional. Yeah. So I trusted that she knew what she was doing. And she was able just to reposition his head ever so slightly. So that was by far the worst part of that labour, by a country mile. That was very, very, very uncomfortable. But I was in the bath for a lot of it. And in my bath, I didn't have a birthing pool. So that was just, it was just lovely and relaxed. And my sister was there for a lot. So it was felt like a kind of a family affair. I went to sleep on the floor in front of, this is just one of the happiest memories of my life actually. I went to sleep on the floor, had really cold feet, it was November, so I had these big woolly socks on, but everywhere else was hot. And I woke up and I looked up and my sister was sitting in a chair reading a book, and that makes me want to cry when I think about it. And I looked up at her and smiled, and she looked down at me and smiled, and I just thought, God, it's all okay. I'm probably going to well. And I just thought, it's all okay, it's all going to be fine. And it was, and I had, because it was quite a long labour, I could hear the midwives outside the bathrooms saying, you know, she's been going for quite a long time, she's quite tired, we might want to think about transferring her to hospital. And I just had this really clear thought. I was just like, there's no way I'm leaving this house. I'm not getting in an ambulance. I don't want to see people that I don't know. I don't want to go out in the cold. I don't want to be under that strip. I had this really clear vision of myself on a trolley going under strip lighting. And I also thought, probably not very clearly, but the second I get to hospital and they know I've been in labour since Monday and I'm a first timer.
So how long? What was the hours?
So that was probably about 2:00 in the morning on Wednesday, and I'd started labouring at about 6 o'clock on a Monday. But I mean, it hadn't all been intense. You know, like I'd been asleep on the floor. I'd walked up and down.
And latent phases like that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's quite relaxed. I mean, focused, but not, you know, not bad. But I also had this very clear thought that if I get to hospital, they're going to start intervening. Not unreasonably, you know, I can understand why they would do that, but I didn't feel like I needed that intervention. Like I said, I felt everything felt okay. Like I didn't feel uncomfortable. I didn't feel concerned. I didn't feel that things weren't moving in the right direction. Anyway, after they had that conversation, which I think they probably didn't know that I overheard, the midwife came in and said, look, you know, let's move you into a different position. And so I stood up in the bath, and as I lifted my leg over the side of the bath, I kind of felt him drop, and he was born 17 minutes later. Oh. So, you know, and I think that's also the skill of the home birth midwife, is to use everything around you to try and get things going.
So let me just stop you there. So does that mean the home birth midwives are the experienced ones? We don't want any midwives in training. Natasha, please do assure us, or you can't guarantee.
Well, the midwives that are looking after you, that is their speciality. That is their field, is home birthing, and so they have the experience of those births, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, the second birth was much quicker. So that was, you know, like I said, I mean, he was like, hi, which was great. But then the third one, I just was determined, because I knew that it was going to be the last birth, and we'd had like quite a traumatic time when I was pregnant with her, because we hadn't been at home. We got done over by builders, obviously.
I know that feeling.
And I'd had this anxiety about maybe not being able to have the home birth and blah, blah. I was just determined that it was going to be great. The thing that I was really worried about with that birth was what I was going to do with the two older kids, given how fast the previous one had been.
Yes.
Well, I slightly lost my mind. And I wrote this really complex, really detailed plan about what would happen if I went into labour at this time. If it was Monday to Friday during these hours, the kids were in childcare and this happened. But if it was during the night, then this is what would happen, and this person was going to be like, it was like sort of like DEFCON 4 or something. You know? But as soon as I'd written those letters and handed them out, there was like a massive.
Everyone knew. There was no confusion.
Like the preschool, the childminder, 5 of my friends, you know, like the whole thing. So as soon as I had got that out there, and I didn't feel like it was my responsibility anymore, and actually, as it goes, I started feeling on a Saturday night that things were changing, and then on Sunday morning I woke up and started labouring, you know, nice and early in the morning. So it was good because I could, you know, I got the boys up, I phoned my friend came to pick them up. We did that thing where, you know, my friend turned up and like I wasn't dressed, I was in this vest, massive, like in this vest top with this massive belly sticking out the front. But you know, it was really relaxed and lovely, and I could say goodbye to the boys nicely and calmly, and they went off feeling they were going on a big adventure. She said she was going to take them to buy presents for the new baby, so they were really pleased that they were going to get involved and do that. And that was about 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and then I went up and adopted my position in the bath and listened to some hypnobirthing tracks, and I just really wanted to feel every moment. Like I knew it was the last time I was going to do it, so I just really wanted to kind of welcome each contraction, each surge, each wave, you know, and know that that was the sort of, you know, sort of almost it sounds a bit dark, but almost a grieving thing. Like, this is the last time I'm going to do this, and it's like moving on in a phase in my life, you know. And then I felt that I didn't want to be in the bath anymore, that stuff was changing. So I went downstairs and went into the room where all the kids had been born and leant over the sofa, and my midwife turned up, and she's the same midwife who's been involved in the delivery of all of my kids. So that was like, totally like that. Like it's like family, you know, it's properly like family. And I had the same transition moment that I have had for all 3 of my kids, which is, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to go. Oh, it's in me, I can't go anywhere. And then she was born, and she was a girl, and
Oh, you didn't know what you were having?
I didn't know what I was having, but I'd assumed that because I had 2 boys, that this would be another boy. And it was so beautiful, because this midwife was the midwife that I'd known. So she was crying, I was crying, my husband was crying. We were like, it's so beautiful. And it was just gorgeous.
Actually, Natasha, can you talk to us about some of maybe the best home birth moments that you've
I actually do remember a particular lady who has become a good friend of mine now, who I'd actually been involved in all 4 of her births.
Wow.
And she had 2 land births, not in the water, and 2 water births. And actually, I was a student when she had her first baby, and then I was qualified for the other 3. But it was really lovely to have been involved with, and I'm actually really good friends with her now. You do feel, you really bond with these ladies, and you think they do become very good friends. But I love the experience of being at home and being in other women's, you know, their environment and their family, and you feel very privileged that they're allowing you to be in and being involved with that.
What room do typically women give birth in? The bedroom, the bathroom?
Predominantly, I think I've had lots of ladies downstairs where they've had space, where they've got the downstairs loo in the kitchen, and they can just. And a lot of the ladies I've looked after have had water births, so they've hired pools, and they've had it sort of in the dining room, which is right near the tap, so they can fill up, or so they can get their drinks and things, or kind of an open plan, area. I mean, it varies. Some women like to be in their bedroom and like to be in, around their bed. But I mean, the good thing is they can move and transition around the different rooms that they like, but predominantly most people have been kind of downstairs and have had their families there. It's funny, some children some of the children are there looking around, peeing in the pool. Wow. Especially when the baby comes floating out into the water and they're like, oh my goodness, look, it's so lovely, and watching their little faces, and it's so special, so magical. And
so you, as a midwife, you're comfortable having like the children around, like?
Yeah, so I think whatever the woman wants, because that is what's going to make her experience in her birth. But and it's interesting we're saying about some women want to be in hospital because they feel that's where they're going to be safe, and some women want their whole family around them, and and you're just kind of hopping over people and toys and things, and you're like so whatever is right for that woman, I think I'm fine with. Obviously certain things you want to make sure the environment is safe, that aren't going to be slipping on water, and there's not going to be other accidents, because you just want to be able to focus on mum and baby rather than other things going on around. But
Another question on home births. What is the cleanup like afterwards?
Do you know
I'll tell you the biggest mess after home births is the midwives and the tea and toast. I was in our kitchen afterwards. It looked like we'd had a bloody party. It was ridiculous. There were like because it had been a long labour, there were like teacups, plates. Like if my midwives are listening, I don't mind at all. You did a great job. That's absolutely fine. But yeah.
I think there's a myth, isn't there, that it's going to be messy and horrible, but it's not. It's really not. And as you were saying earlier about having equipment ready, I mean, the other day I had this lady who'd had brought a mattress down into her living room, and she'd had towels, and then a shower curtains are fantastic. Not just for your shower, but for home births. So and they're massive, and they spread around, and then she had a sheet over the top of that, and the pool was just next door. So literally she could, she was kind of on that, and actually the waters broke while she was on that. And then she got into the pool, and so we bring loads of Incos with us anyway, which are these kind of like pads with plastic backing and soft pad on top, and to be honest, it was absorbing most of the water from the pool when the lady had got out, So and actually in the pool everything's there.
Do you help women clean up afterwards?
Yeah, I mean we do, but predominantly we will do it. So that this lady then got out of the pool, and then she went back to her mattress and had lovely skin to skin, cuddling with her baby, all snuggled up. whilst her placenta, we were waiting for the placenta to deliver, so she was and attached to her baby, the cord was still intact, and they would just be able to have that bonding time. And then Dad came along and all three of them were snuggled together, and the lights were dimmed in that room, and we were just quietly going around picking up any stuff and tidying up and getting things ready for the delivery of the placenta and stuff.
So you take that all away?
Yes,
My house is
and you wouldn't have known we were there.
And so do you bring your like weighing scales?
Yes, yeah. So we do have so we've got the box obviously of equipment that we need already at the house.
Yeah.
And then we bring various bits with us, so like our weighing scales and the sonic aid and things, so we can listen to heartbeats and things like that.
Have you had many home births where they don't know what the gender is and you're like, it's the boy, it's the girl?
Yes, yeah. It's funny because nowadays most people know with having scans and stuff. People are like, oh, tell us. But it is really lovely when they don't know. Like this lady, she didn't know what she was having. And it is really nice, you know. And often, I remember one family that they wanted the children to tell them. So the baby came up and then the children were looking, they're going, oh, we've got a boy, mummy, you know, which is lovely. So whatever's special for that, whatever family, you know, does. And sometimes, you know, they want us to shout, it's this, or sometimes they say we want to,
honest,
you know, find ourselves.
I see the benefits in terms of like, imagine the food that you want to eat, your mum hasn't made it. So that's already there for after, you know, after labour, the hunger, it's just
The hunger.
Yes, now, the
hunger.
And then you can have like all your snack, everything, like, just imagine all the food set out.
It's like a little feast.
Yeah.
A celebration.
Charlie, tell us the impact hypnobirthing has played in your home birth.
And what is hypnobirthing? Because I think people have like, what is hypnobirthing?
Yes.
Yeah. So I hate the name hypnobirthing because I think it makes people think exactly that. It makes people think that I'm a raging hippie and that I'm going to have a pendulum and that I'll make you cluck like a chicken. And actually, the hypnosis element is just one part of what I do. It's really interesting what you were saying earlier on about preparing for your labour and how your Christianity helped you with your mindset, because actually I think hypnobirthing is far more about getting yourself in the right mindset for you than it is about the hypnosis stuff. Like you can call it hypnosis, or you can call it guided relaxation or guided meditation or deep relaxation or whatever you want to call it. The purpose of that, I think, is threefold. So the primary thing is, it's the same thing about like hypnosis for weight loss or smoking cessation, is it helps you to get rid of some unhelpful habits and to replace them with like a good framework that is believable and achievable. So that's the more woo element of it. The other thing that deep relaxation does is it helps with oxytocin production. So it has a really practical benefit while you're in the late stages of pregnancy and while you're labouring, to help you feel confident and to manage those really intense sensations and to not panic, to feel like you're in control and allow it to roll over you. And I think the other thing that it does is it helps you to focus. It gives you some time out to really think about your pregnancy and to tune into you and your baby and to all of the other changes and transformations that are happening while you're pregnant. So that's the more kind of woo element of it. But more than that, it helps you, it's practical information, because a lot of women don't understand how their bodies work. Like a lot of women do not understand how their bodies work or what the stages of labour are or what's happening.
The stages of labour.
Yeah. So I think understanding that is really, really helpful. So it's not just what your body does, but how it does it. So understanding about those hormonal loads and, you know, which hormones are responsible for which things, because that gives you some confidence in what's about to happen so that you're not scared by it. But also investigating things like birth environment, you know, like we've been talking about, like I would have a home birth forever, but it's not right for some people. But if you just accept somebody else's idea about what's the right thing to do, then you haven't had any control in that. And I think there is so I read a great book about 4 or 5 years ago, which I quote constantly, by an American obstetrician called Anne Drapkin Lyally, and she did a study with Duke University in America in 2014 to understand what the correlations for good birth were. And her working hypothesis was that good birth equals spontaneous labour, vaginal delivery, minimal drug intervention, because of course it's a study in the US where they're very quick to medicate. and no intervention. And actually what she discovered in the study was that the correlating factors for good birth were not about how the baby comes out of your body or where you are. The correlating factors are about, did you understand what was happening? Did you feel respected? Did you feel that you were in control, that you were able to make your own decisions rather than going along with decisions that were sort of being made for you? Did you have a good support network around you? So were the people around you listening to you and responding to you and not their kind of idea about what's supposed to happen next? And that's what hypnobirthing is about, really. It's about helping you to create that environment where you know what's going on, you've created an environment that's physiologically and emotionally healthy for you, you've got a really good support team. There's a lot in there about dads, because one of the things that we do awful thing we do to men is, you know, they go off to work, they do all of their work stuff, then their wife gets pregnant, and the wife goes mainly to the midwife appointments and reads the books and goes to the antenatal classes, and then we say to the husband, right, go into that institution with all of the doctors and the midwives and the healthcare assistants who've done years of training, and they use their own vocabulary and their own vernacular and support your wife.
Yeah, how?
Like, how am I supposed to do that? You know, so there's a lot in there about kind of practical support for partners, for birth partners, and about what that actually means, like investigating what vulnerability is and what intimacy is, because it's such you are so vulnerable in your pregnancy and your labour that, you know, if you can pass responsibility for your vulnerability to somebody else, then that's another thing you don't have to think about, you know. So it's all about, you know, so it's a little bit of, you know, lie on the sofa, listen to your MP3s, tune into your birthing body, but it's also a lot of practical knowledge and investigation and discussion, I think, practical skills and techniques.
Natasha, do you mind just telling us just about the different stages of labour before we wrap up? So first stage, what are the stages of labour?
So you've actually got latent phase, which is a lot of the time people don't know about latent phase or even understand that. That's the kind of the bit before you get into the first stage of labour. And actually latent phase can be quite a few days, you know, and it's like your body preparing and getting you ready, so you have some contractions, then they go off.
You do a lot of diarrhea poos maybe? Things like that,
yeah, bit of a clear out,
Down to it, don't mess around.
No, exactly, yeah. And things are starting to brew and you kind of start thinking, what's going on here? And getting a few contractions, get a bit of a show, you know, things you kind of feel, I'm feeling a little bit different. And then sometimes you can get contractions that, you know, a bit erratic. So sometimes they last a long time, they're quite frequent, and then they go off again, and you manage to have a bit of a rest and a bit of a sleep, something to eat, and you get up and that does that again. And it, you know, and sometimes they can get quite close together and then they kind of go off again. So it's kind of a bit like all kind of preparation for your body, and then getting into that first stage of labour, which is when you're in active labour.
So 4 centimetres.
So that's what your cervix, yes. Although sometimes we don't always assess the cervix to know, but so sometimes, and it's also with regular contractions as well. Regular strong contractions where, you know, they're doing something more than just preparing your cervix and getting ready. So that's from, some 4 centimetres and up to 10 centimetres when your cervix is fully dilated and you're having strong regular contractions, and that's then the start of the second stage, when then you start, and often, interesting you were saying about women then transition and feel that, I can't do it now, and that's often going into second stage, and then you start getting that involuntary bearing down where you feel like, oh gosh, I'm now feeling like, and often the waters could possibly go at any stage, but sometimes they don't go generally until that stage, and then you start pushing and then the waters go, and then baby's born. And that's the end of the second stage. And then the third stage is the placenta. So from when the baby's born until the placenta is delivered, and then that is your third stage. So it's kind of, divided up into that. And everyone has a slightly different, you know, latent first, second, third stage. Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask a question about when things go wrong, because I know it's amazing home birth, but some women are just scared that the cord's wrapped around the baby's neck, things like that. Have you?
Yes, and actually that's very common, cord being around the neck. And often it is a case of, you know, unwrapping baby and giving them a vigorous rub down and lots of talking and breathing to them and, you know, and getting them to take that big first breath. And I've had that before.
In home birth?
Yeah, in a home birth.
But they've been fine?
Yep, and literally, you know, recently had a baby, cord around the neck 3 times, unravelled this baby, and then gave the baby out and gave the baby a good stimulation. So we're rubbing the baby, getting that baby to take that big first breath. There are some babies that struggle taking that first breath, and we have equipment where we do have to, give them some resuscitation to help push out the fluid in their lungs and help them to take that big first breath. And often, they recover absolutely fine from that, and they're fine. Just need that little bit of stimulation.
Can I just ask you about the cord around the neck thing? Because that's one of the things that I hear a lot of people feel very anxious about. What happens if my baby is born with a cord around the neck? Am I right in my understanding about Wharton's jelly and about it's actually quite normal for babies to be born with cords around their necks?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the cord is made up of 3 vessels. You've got 2 arteries and a vein, and obviously that's the way baby's connected to you, and obviously gets his oxygen through that. And it is surrounded by Wharton's jelly, and so when you see it, it is kind of squidgy, and it's there to protect those vessels, to stop them from getting squashed. It can be that the baby does get, and sometimes it's wrapped around their arms and around their legs, can come out, and it's literally a case of unravelling them and then giving them a chance. And obviously we don't cut the cord because that baby's still getting oxygen through from mummy, and so we unravel them and then give them that chance.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies. This has been an experience. From at 36 weeks in particular, I have a decision to convince my husband to make. So, there'll be conversations tonight bearing from this. But thank you very much for you guys tuning into this episode. Hopefully you've seen part 1 and you've seen part 2 and you feel informed about home birthing and hypnobirthing. We will put all of Charlie's details about her and her practice in the description box, so you can get in contact with her if you want any more information about hypnobirthing. But hopefully you feel much more informed. I feel informed. I know if you ladies feel informed, but you don't know, guys. Maybe one person in this team could have a home birth. You never know. We'll let you know.
We'll film it.
But thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe and share. This is a really informative video which we think will help so many people. So see you in our next episode.